trying to stick to a tight schedule. My name is Christian Schöcker. I run the web tech and media desk of Spiegel Online, which is Germany's largest non-tabloid news site. I'm humbled and honored to share a stage with so many esteemed colleagues and scientists and managers here today. I don't know about you, but I'm still thrilled by the revolutionary fervor of this morning's first panel. Clay Christensen giving the financial industry a stern talking to, Gary Hagel wanting to uproot corporate bureaucracy, Roger Martin talking about the 1% increasing distance from everybody else. I'm beginning to have visions that haunt me, or images of mild-mannered men in suits pitching tents in Zuccotti Park and marching to Wall Street. Seriously, I think we've established that these are very interesting times, and not in the negative sense of the Chinese curse. There's a huge transformation going on, and obviously technology is playing a big part in this transformation. The topic's been touched on several times today, obviously, but what we want to talk about now is, the question is digital technology an engine for human and economic prosperity, or is it not? There's a fantastic panel that is willing to discuss this with me, fortunately. John Hagel, Didier Bonnet, and Andrew Keen. I'll introduce them in some more detail in a second. They each have a few minutes of introductory statements. First up is a former startup entrepreneur who worked with Boston Consulting and McKinsey and is currently co-chairman of Deloitte's forward-thinking Center for the Edge. He's written influential books like The Power of the Pull, about how companies can adapt to an ever-changing environment, which has received praise from readers ranging from Bill Clinton to Google's Eric Schmidt. John Hagel, you have the floor.
Thank you. I've chosen as the title of my talk, The Dark Side of Technology. And I do it specifically because of my belief that technology actually can be both a force for evil and a force for a positive force. But in order to harness the positive force, we need to first of all understand the dark side of this technology. And what I mean by that is the impact of digital technology on a global scale. The dark side is that it is increasing performance pressure on all of us in at least three different levels. The first level is it is systematically and substantially reducing barriers to entry and barriers to movement on a global scale. So it's intensifying competition. Secondly, it is accelerating the pace of change. We are having to move faster just to stay in the same place. And then, as if that weren't enough, because of the connectivity that this digital technology is creating on a global scale, we are facing a situation where tiny events, often a part of the world we never heard of, cascade into extreme events and become Taleb's black swans that disrupt our best laid plans. So those three forces, intensifying competition, accelerating change, and the increasing uncertainty from extreme events, is creating mounting performance pressure on all of us. Gary Hagel, in his presentation earlier this morning, referred to some of the research we did to document this, and I'm going to resist the temptation to share too much of it, but one piece of evidence that I think drives this home is an analysis we did for all U.S. public companies, every single public company in the United States from 1965 to today. And we looked at performance, and we took as our measure of performance, with apologies to Clay Christensen, return on assets. Over that time period, from 1965 to today, for all public companies in the U.S., return on assets has basically collapsed. It has declined by 75%. Over that time period, it's been a systematic and sustained and substantial erosion. There is absolutely no evidence of it leveling off. There is certainly no evidence of it turning around. So if you want evidence of mounting performance pressure, we think that's a pretty good indicator. And the question arises, why is that happening? Why have we not figured out how to respond to this mounting performance pressure? I would make the case that it's because we have an increasing disconnect between the world that is being shaped by this digital technology and the mindsets, the practices, and the institutions that we operate. And I think in order to close that disconnect, we're going to have to ask some very basic questions. One basic question is, why do we have institutions to begin with? And this was actually the focus of my talk last year at this forum. So I'm not going to go into the detailed answer on that, but we'll posit that there is a fundamental shift that has to happen. We need to move from a rationale of scalable efficiency for our institutions to a rationale of scalable learning. That is a profound shift. It's not something that you can do both of. You have to make a choice because they're in fundamental conflict. I want to focus today on a second basic question that needs to be asked, which is, what business are we in? And I love it because actually Peter Drucker, I found out in the last year of his life, was focused on this question and talking about the role of the CEO. And he said that one of the key roles of the CEO is to ask three basic questions. What is our business? What should it be? And what should it not be? Now, for most of us, I think the reaction to that would be, well, wait a minute, that's obvious. We're a bank. We're a hospital. We're a software company. It's obvious what business we're in. I want to suggest that it's less and less obvious, and that in fact, based on some of the research that we've done, that most companies today are an unnatural bundle of three very different business types, and that ultimately we're going to have to choose which of those business types we really want to be in and should be in. The first type of business is what I call an infrastructure management business. High volume, routine processing activities. It could be running a manufacturing operation, it could be running logistics, it could be running a call center operation. High volume, routine processing activities. There's a second type of business, which is product innovation and commercialization, coming up with creative new products or services, getting them into market quickly, and accelerating adoption of them. And then there's a third type of business, which I call a customer relationship business, which is getting to know a customer better and using that knowledge to become more and more helpful to that customer. Now, these are three different business types. They have very different skill sets required. They have very different economics, and they ultimately have very different cultures, and yet we keep them tightly bundled together in most of our companies. And we compromise on a daily basis because of the conflicts among those three business types. And if we're really serious about learning faster, I believe we're going to have to make a choice of which of those three business types are we in. Now, one of the things that has already happened over the past several decades, we've seen a process of increasing reliance on outsourcing, which you can think of as the systematic stripping out of those infrastructure management businesses, contract manufacturing, contract logistics, contract call centers, increasingly pulling out those infrastructure management businesses and handing them off to specialized companies who just focus on that business type. My belief is we're increasingly going to have a situation where we're going to have to pull apart those other two business types: product innovation, commercialization, customer relationship businesses. One of the forces that's driving the product innovation business is a democratization of the means of production. We saw that, first of all, in digital technology. The means of production for all kinds of content became widely accessible to everyone. And we saw proliferation of content, videos, music, text, all available to anyone who wanted to make that kind of content. Increasingly, we're seeing a new set of technologies come into the marketplace, things like 3D printing, biosynthesis, that are taking that democratization of the means of production and making it available in physical products, not just digital products. And that process, that trend of fragmentation and proliferation in product innovation and commercialization is creating an increasing opportunity for that third type of business, customer relationship business. Where increasingly, as we're confronted with more and more options that are more rapidly evolving over time, the value and role of having someone as a trusted advisor, someone who knows us very deeply, not just as part of a segment of a market, but as an individual customer, and can be proactive in giving us advice and recommendations based on a deep understanding of who we are and based on deep trust that we can rely on those recommendations, is a very significant opportunity out there. But I think, again, at the end of the day, these are three very different business types, and we're going to require choices. We're going to have to decide which of those three business types are we really in, and radical proposition shed the other two types of businesses. And I think technology in this context is creating both the need and the opportunity to do this. 50 years ago, it would have been ridiculous to suggest that we needed to make that kind of choice. We needed all three of those in a single company. No more. And I don't think it's just an opportunity. I think it's an imperative. Because of that mounting performance pressure, if we continue to compromise by keeping all three of these business types together in our companies, we will subperform relative to companies who do make those choices and choose to be world-class in one of those three business types. So I think the question on the table is, what business are you really in? And at the end of the day, my belief is that the dark side of technology is also the bright side of technology, because it becomes a catalyst for change. It forces us to confront these questions and make these choices, and I believe we will have a much more vibrant and prosperous economy if we make those choices. Thank you.